Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder from Hotspotting. Media keeps telling us in it the way that it reports real estate data in such a generalised way that Australian property prices are falling at the moment. And while we're at pains to point out, well, that's not true. They may be falling in Sydney, and that's dragging down the national average or the average for capital cities. But certainly there are many places around Australia where prices are not only rising, but they're rising very fast. Hobart would be an example, Newcastle, Geelong, many other places in regional Australia would be another, and an example where prices are rising and the market is still very strong, even as Sydney's boom is subsiding, is Canberra. And this week, amongst the news items that came through in our research was the one that told us that in the last few years, we've seen a doubling of residential land prices in Canberra. In the last 6 years, the average rate for per square metre for residential land in Canberra is increased from about $490 a square metre to $950 a square metre. And Canberra land is now the second most expensive in the country after Sydney. Sydney's average, according to these figures, is a little bit over $1,000 a square metre, whereas Canberra's $950. And as I said, there's been a near doubling on land prices since 2012. Now, one of the things in play here is that it's actually a great example of how politicians, particularly state and territory politicians, are the biggest single cause of housing affordability problems in Australia. They inflate the price of new dwellings with their taxes, their fees, their charges, their bureaucracy, their policies, their delays. And nowhere is there a better example of that than in the Australian Capital Territory in Canberra, where the ACT government totally controls the supply of land. They drip feed it to the market in a way that's designed to keep prices high. So what we found in the research that came out this week is that while land prices have almost doubled in the last 6 years, in the same time frame, the ACT government's revenue from annual land sales has more than doubled. It's increased from $218 million 6 years ago to an estimated almost $600 million in this current fiscal year. How do they achieve that? Well, they control the supply of land in Canberra. They drip feed it to the market in a way where supply is always considerably less than demand. If the ACT government announces a land release of 200 new allotments, there'll be thousands and thousands of people putting their hands up wanting to buy those couple of hundred allotments. And so they'll bid for them, and very quickly you'll find people paying $500,000 for a very, very tiny block of residential land that might be only 300 or 400 square metres. So it's quite a deliberate government policy to increase their revenue. But the result is that land is incredibly expensive in Canberra. That means that new house and land packages are even more expensive. And it's just one major example of why we have a housing affordability problem in Australia, because the cost of creating new dwellings is so high because of what the politicians do with their policies and their taxes and their fees and charges. And the best, or rather the worst example of it, is in the ACT. But from the point of view of people who own real estate there and property investors, this policy is one of the reasons why values are high and continue to rise in Canberra. So that's one place where the market is on the up. Very low vacancies, rents are rising probably more strongly there than anywhere else in Australia right now. And with the exception of Hobart, it's probably the number one city for capital growth at the moment amongst the capital cities. That's it for now. Terry Ryder from Hotspotting signing off. I will talk to you again soon.